Welcome back to another special episode of the Epic Experiment Podcast. I'm Bruce, it's episode 156, and I'm joined on the line once again by Sneaky Pete to chat all things Magic the Gathering. How are you tonight, Pete?
I'm doing all right. It's good to be back on a sort of consistent schedule here. We're really happy to be here talking Magic today. And this is our conclusion for the last few weeks. We've been doing different kinds of deck builds. So we tried to end it on a memey sort of fun note. And I think these two decks are pretty gold, so it'll be fun to talk about them today.
Indeed. Yeah, no, I think this is our arc of helping people with their deck building. And then we've gone through 6 different types of decks now. This will be our 6th week of it, audience. So if you like these sorts of shows, let us know, and I'm sure we can put another arc or two in the future. There's lots of other archetypes that are out there that we didn't dive into, but these are some of the ones that we like to gravitate to, and hoping people can enjoy them. But yeah, it's good to get back on a regular schedule and not have stomach ailments or whatever. I know the holidays are coming up, and there's always commotion around that, so we may end up having an unforeseen break or two, but in the meantime, we are back and enjoying stuff. Okay, well, Pete, where do people find the show if they want to check us out each and every week?
So allegedly, we're on a lot of different platforms. At least that's what I heard. We're mostly on Discord. I think we're circling around X, but we might get off that because of all the controversy around that. But I know we're on like everything I think you could be on at this point. I mean, maybe local television might pick us up soon. Who knows? Maybe we'll be on like that late night Channel 5 or something. But I would say circle back. LotusCouncil.com is the easiest way to find us. Email and maybe like the occasional smoke signal through the air. But other than that, we love to have conversations in multiple Discords about Magic. That's what we do.
I like to put a message in a bottle. Message in a bottle. Yeah. No, anyone for some Sting? No, and the Police? No. All right.
I know.
Okay.
I know who sings that. I think we should keep it that way, right?
Not me. That's who. All right. Yeah. And if folks will email us, check out the show notes. You can find out how to get a hold of us. And we'd love to hear from you guys. All right, Pete, let's get right into it. Are you ready? Garbage or great? All right. Tonight, our first card is a card that's making noise in constructed formats because the fixed version of Cascade is still busto. Trumpeting Carnosaur, Pete. So this one is a 4 red for a 7/6 dinosaur with trample. When Trumpeting Dinosaur enters the battlefield, discover 5, and then 2 in a red, discard Trumpeting Carnosaur. It deals 3 damage to target creature or planeswalker. Now, Pete, I put this one on the list because people are really excited about it in constructed formats. It's making moves in Pioneer, in Standard. Is it good enough for us to play in Commander?
If you're not paying 6 for it, then yeah. I think we talked about this before, just going over our picks for tonight's show. But if you reanimate this thing, or you're able to flicker this thing or something, and just recur the value of discovering 5, it can be very strong depending on how you build your deck, right? I don't like Discover because it's too random. I don't like Cascade because it's too random. I like to sort of fix what I'm supposed to play. But there are times when you just go crazy with it, and it just houses the opponents. It is like a nice way to just deal some damage in red and remove something off the board. Pitching it. I like that it's like a bolt for 3 mana. That's kind of nice. But I don't know. I think time will tell, right? Like beyond the dinosaur decks and beyond the sort of budget reanimating target, I'm not really sure where it would fit beyond like something like that. Because if you can only do it once, then you might brick and hit like a Soul Ring when you don't need it, or hit like a 1-drop creature that doesn't do anything for you later in the game. So, what do you think?
Yeah. Well, no, I think you're absolutely correct there. That the Discover feature of it is a bit of a concern. However, what I like about this more than I like the Cascade is that because it's an enter the battlefield trigger, it has an easy way to throw it in your graveyard because you can use the modality of it to remove something problematic. Like if we often have the remove a utility creature or requirement to remove a mana dork or something to set an opponent back, putting your Carnosaur in your graveyard, and now you have it as a reanimation target or as something that you have access to later in the game when you need it. And there's lots of ways to get it back through lots of different means. In fact, the next card on where I talk about in a second is going to be a great way to get it back. And so therefore you're going to get like that 2-for-1 trigger off of it pretty reliably, and you will have used it to kill something, making it like almost like a 3-for-1. I kind of feel like this is probably good enough that lots of decks could run it, not just dinosaur decks. Then you mentioned something that's disgusting. It's the flickering ability of doing something goofy with this.
Because, I got to turn it from 0 to 100 every time.
Yeah. So like Pete's our own lovable dirtbag, and he's going to take the big old dino, make a copy of it, or flicker it, or do something and get more value off it. Yet still, the moment you said Jaxus, the moment I was like, "Oh my god, yes!" Is this like this? If this isn't in your Jaxus list already, this should be, because this thing is exactly what your Jaxus list wants to do.
I think my average CMC is like 2 anyway, so I would definitely hit something. I'm not sure what it would be, but
well, see, the nice thing with Discover, it doesn't even matter, because if you get a spell, you put it in your hand. And unlike Cascade, you could have had the awkward position of like, "Oh, I don't want to cast this spell." Nuts, and you gotta fire it off. So
it's basically like a draw. Like it draws you a card when it enters, which is nice.
If that's the worst you're gonna get of the Trumpeting Carnosaur, like okay, so you get a 7/6 and a card. Sure, replaces itself like cantrips. That's really strong. So I think this is probably it's already in 2800X, 2900X. It probably should be in more, and just because the thing is just that good. So I think the hype is real. I think people are going to discover in due course that the thing is kind of busted and should be probably a bigger inclusion. That's what I think.
Only time will tell. As same with the next card that we're talking about tonight. This is one of my favorites because I've seen a lot of vintage cube recently, and watching a lot of people using this card to great effect makes me want to pull out of my binder, my bulk bearing. But it's from the Catacombs, so it's from Baldur's Gate. So not many people, I think, know about this card because everybody hated on that set so much, unfortunately. But now here's the time for it to shine. 3 colorless and 2 black. It's a sorcery. Put target creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control with a corpse counter on it. That creature would leave the battlefield exiled instead of putting it anywhere else, and you get to take the initiative. Which, and then finally you get to escape it for the same cost, and you exile 5 other cards from your graveyard. So the initiative, if the audience is unaware, is like a dungeon on its own that has some specific abilities that you can choose from, and then if you complete the dungeon, you can cheat out a creature for free. But it's just card advantage pretty much. A lot of people really like it in Vintage because obviously any advantage for free is good advantage. But in Commander, we're not really sure because we don't see these cards enough. I play 1 or 2 of them, but I just personally like the mechanic a lot. What do you think, though, Bruce? On the surface, it's like a 5-mana reanimator we've seen before, but you can play it again, potentially.
I think this is like way too much value. Like, okay, so audience, 5-mana reanimate target from your graveyard is an effect that exists pretty typically in most sets. And this one's right on rate. So you get 5-mana reanimate target. But this one has got a couple of upgrades that makes it really appealing. First, it doesn't have to be your graveyard. It can be any graveyard. So when somebody in your table has got a really juicy target in their graveyard, oh, now it's my target. You've gone and lost a powerful creature or something key that you want to play. Well, now it's back on the battlefield. 5 mana is steep, but in Commander, just like in lots of things, the game is all about how much mana you can generate, and there's lots of ways to generate poop tons of mana in Black. So I don't think like this card already's got some significant upgrades already. Next, taking the initiative is big game. If you want to just get free value off just doing stuff, this is it. You're going to get significant value off of it at each time. And if you can, and it's not like adventuring through the dungeon. Like if you adventure through the dungeon through the AFR cards, Adventure of the Forgotten Realms, you need to have an instance of it saying you adventure in the dungeon. Initiative doesn't work that way. Initiative is very similar to the Monarch, where if you retain the initiative turn after turn after turn, you progress through the dungeon anyway. So you just take the initiative and you can protect it. You will still progress, even if you don't have other cards in your deck that say, I'm going to take the initiative. And then the game remembers where you are in that dungeon. So if you lose it, you go take it back if we're dealing damage like the Monarch, and now you just start the process again. So like this is just really excellent value for that alone. Next, when you could go and get it back and use it again by escaping cards, come on now. Like, so you're just asking all those black, blue, or Sultai mill decks to just have a gas, have fun recasting those scary bombs out of your graveyard. So this is an excellent upgrade. It is 35 cents, audience. It's 35 cents well spent on like going to take out whatever clunky reanimation spell you have and put it in. Sure, are there better reanimation spells? Sure, you can go and play Necromancy or Reanimate or Animate Dead or Dance with the Dead. Like those are your premium ones for sure. But if you're budget conscious or you don't have access to some of the oldest cards of the game, then this is a really good alternative, and it's jam-packed full of value on every line on on the card. I think this card is excellent. Yeah, you don't want to have a ton of these 5-mana spells sitting in your hand because they could be dead. Like if the game goes fast, you don't get a chance to use it. But if you get an opportunity, like a window to fire this off, you are going to be giggling all the way to the bank of Value Town. So I'm a big fan. I think people should play it. It's in almost 10,000 decks already. It's like it's the card in 10,000 decks that no one knows about, and it's I think like, it should be in 20,000 decks. Frankly, I think it's that good. Like double the number of decks. I think that's what I think.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else?
And the final one. I mean, it's easy to see. Like you could steal other people's creatures. You could take back your own. It's just super flexible for what this type of effect does. It's good late game. It's good early game. It's just good enough, right?
Just good, and like I think that's really the sentiment here for most of the initiative cards. Most of them are probably good enough to be played, and the effect of the initiative is probably worth the inclusion. If you have two cards that are roughly equal, or like one that maybe a little bit better and one with the initiative, you're like, oh, but the initiative's on that one.
Right.
That's kind of big game. So we should probably be doing this more often, audience.
And I mean, from someone who's completed that dungeon a lot, it's pretty easy to get down and just run through it quickly. Once you run through it once, there's huge payoffs for these cards. So I would recommend at least trying it in your local pods at least once.
Absolutely. At least
see how it works out.
And I mean, again, picking it up for 35 cents, if that's all the investment you got to make, that's not bad. Like you can pick up a copy, try it out. If you don't like it, put it back in the box and not try it again. But if you like it, you can. It's not you didn't spend a lot of money on it. You know. Right. So, all right. Our last one here, I think, is one that Pete pointed out to me last week after we went off the air. But I think we wanted to talk about it. So this is Matzalatli, the Great Door, which is a 3-mana legendary artifact. Tap, draw a card, then discard a card. 4, tap, transform Matzalatli, the Great Door. Activate only if there are 4 or more permanent types among cards in your graveyard. So you have to meet Delirium before you can flip it. And then once you flip it, you have tap, add X mana of any one color, where X is the number of permanent cards in your graveyard. Not types, just permanents in your graveyard. Pete, this feels busted.
Yeah.
Like,
it's it's like what we said. It's a budget guy's cradle, which is one of the most broken cards in the. I mean, even if you only have 2 lands in your graveyard that you cracked earlier, you're still generating 2 for 1.
Yeah, which is awesome. Like that, if that is the floor for this card, you are doing really, really well. And there's gonna be lots of times, audience, if you can flip this. And like, let's be honest, you're flipping this because you had a creature die, you maybe an enchantment or something that somebody removed. Like, let's say you play a burgeoning or you played an exploration, and someone goes, "Whoa!" They remove it because they can't let you run away with the game. Okay, good. Your enchantment goes. Your creature dies. They kill a bird. You sack a fetch land. There's 3 of them. Artifact gets someone casts Vandal Blast or kills an artifact. Now you have 4 in the graveyard. Easy as pie. And now you flip the stupid thing and you have a rock that makes 4, or land that makes 4 mana. Easy as pie. And if you invest energy in doing this turbo style, this is gonna be nuts. Like this is broken. Like, to me, this isn't Gaia's Cradle. This is Academy Ruins, or Academy, Tolarian Academy. This is like broken in pieces, and no one's talking about it. It is $1.35, and like, yes, people are gonna say, "Well, if I have Tolarian Academy, I don't have to spend any mana for it." I'm like, you're right. In 2023, broken lands cost you mana. I'm sorry. That never held Nykthos back. Nykthos is broken. It's a broken land. Because you know what people do with Nykthos? They tap it once, untap it, and then tap it again. And now they got 26 mana and they're doing something dumb. Well, that's what this is going to do. You're going to have a bunch of things in your graveyard. You're going to tap the thing, make a bunch of mana, untap it, make 26, kill the table. Like, folks, we're like, maybe we're a little hyperbolic on this card. Like, or I am a little hyperbolic on this card.
So, like, you pay 3, you draw a card, you discard a card. You can, at minimum, flip it the next turn on someone else's turn, because you don't have to do this as sorcery. Most of these cards are like sorcery speed in this set. They tried to make them very fair and balanced. This makes Jumpstart better. This makes Surveil better. Like, if you play Curate on turn 2, you surveil 2 cards, put them in the graveyard. Play this on turn 3, draw a card, discard a card. You have 3 permanents in the yard already. Pay 4, flip it. Go to your turn. You have like 8 mana on turn 5.
Yeah, it's silly. Silly good. And it's $1.36. No one's talking about it. No one knows. No one's talking about it. So we're talking about it here on the show, and you should play it, audience, because this thing, like, I'm going to wager, like, in 2 years' time, this is going to be ubiquitous. People are going to be like, "Oh, we should have got on this card early." That's what I'm thinking, because I mean, the last broken land that looks like this was Nykthos. Like, really, that's the last one. And I mean, there was the Cabal Stronghold in Dominaria that was like kind of like Cabal Coffers. It's okay if you want to do that. I think this card provides you with a little bit of card selection before you flip it, and then when you flip it, it goes nuts. And so again, we are high on it here on the show. I'm really high on it. Like, I'm thinking this thing is a mistake. That's what I think. I think this is a mistake. And it's just a matter of time before the community figures out this is a mistake, and you start seeing this everywhere.
I mean, I could see 3 or 4 decks that would love this card that I have currently at 3. So without going too much into it, anything that free draws you a card and flips into that. I mean, I don't know. What are we doing?
It's just good. It's good. I think we're good. So, yeah, that's what we should be doing. Okay. So we've talked about some broken cards and how they're all good. And now let's talk about some funky decks and some sweet, sweet jank. And let's be honest, folks. These are the sorts of decks that brewers love to put together because they're just the sort of funny things or interesting decks that you don't see very frequently, that people are going to be like, "Oh, that's a cool deck." So we have our memeiest decks or jankiest decks that we've got kicking around in our collections, and we're going to sort of talk them through. maybe hopefully get you people inspired to maybe do your own fun, cool thing. So, Pete, help me out. What did you brew up tonight?
This deck is dumb. All right, it's very fun, but it's very dumb. So the joke when I was playing, like when I would play like limited or whatever, and even when I started building decks early on, like in any format, I loved 3-drops. Like I would always overdo it. I'd always have too many in my decks. So I was like, let's make a commander deck revolving around this cruel joke of mine of playing too many 3-drops. So it's Volrath, the Shape Stealer, and Karuga as a companion. And it's just everything in the deck is 3 or greater. I'm playing a lot of old, like sort of bad cards, and then a few like good creature bombs, and a few weird like clones, synergy things. And the deck plays differently every single time. And every time I play it, it's like it either wins out of nowhere or does nothing because it's too slow for the pod. But that's by design, right? So it's fun. So I'm playing bad counters too.
People may not be familiar with Volrath because it is the 403rd ranked commander on EDH Rec. It was a backup commander in a precon.
It was in the it was in the manifest one, I think, actually.
The morph deck.
The morph one, yeah.
So let's read Volrath, the Shapestealer. So 2 black, green, blue for a 7/5 legendary creature shapeshifter. At the beginning of combat on your turn, put a -1/-1 counter on up to 1 target creature. And then 1, until your next turn, Volrath the Shapestealer becomes a copy of target creature with a counter on it, except it's a 7/5 and it has this ability. Wow. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to be honest, folks. I have to take some credit for this one because Pete found this in a box of bulk this summer. And he's like, I like this. I'm going to build this. And I'm like, you have at her, my friend, because I don't know what to do with it. So Pete put together this concoction. The list is going to be in the show notes, everybody. So let's talk about this. So first off, the idea, I'm assuming, came from the idea that your drafting tended to lean to 3-drops, and you found a weird Sultai commander. Is there any other inspiration you took for this one?
I mean, I don't know. I've been wanting to make a Sultai list that wasn't oppressive for a while, and I thought like how weird Volrath is as a card, just like the weird things you can do with him. I figured like there's probably a chance that I could do some really strange things with the card and also use Karuga for card draw, because Karuga like is not played at all as well. Karuga says as a stipulation, your starting deck contains only cards with CMC 3 or greater and lands. And then when it enters, you draw a card for each other permanent you control with that 3 or greater. So like in Commander, we want to be as efficient as possible, and as of right now, right, we play faster now because of all the power creep in the format. Mm-hmm. So I figured maybe I can try to like break that a little bit. I'm not playing like too many broken cards because there are a lot of like very expensive cards that you can cheat out for free. But I figured this was a nice balance in my rationale.
Yeah. So I'm looking at the decks it appears in, like as a companion being played in the way that you're discussing it here. Like Karuga is played very sparingly, both as a commander and as a companion. So it's really interesting to see Karuga be applied in the situation because it would not be something that you would tend to plan to see. So let's go and have an examination with Pete at his list and see what he's coming up with. All right, so Pete, what would you say is the primary strength of this deck? Like, what is it that makes it compelling or difficult for your opponents to play against?
Nobody knows what the heck I'm going to play next. Because it's 3 or greater, there's no Soul Ring, there's no Arcane Signet. There's no Signets at all, actually, because I can't play them.
Yeah.
I'm playing really bad counter spells like Spell Swindle, which are actually really good for me, because when people get, like, when I don't do anything for 5 turns, they're like, what is this? Like, what is this deck? But then when I spell swindle, they're like best card and then drop like an 8-drop. It feels good.
Yeah, it would.
I don't know. It's mostly leveraging like the chaotic energy of the deck. Like obviously Forgotten Ancient is really good because I can put the counters on anything.
Yeah.
Like I can put them on my opponent's creatures. I've definitely soloed people with the big fish, Stormtide Leviathan, which I thought was funny, right? Because that's like something you don't see every day.
Oh, yeah, no, for sure. It doesn't see a whole lot of
So like you put the -1/-1 counter on the Leviathan, then you make Volrath unblockable pretty much.
right.
You just keep punching him in the face for 7 damage. Tamir Sabertooth is probably the best creature in the entire deck. There's a lot of value creatures in the deck, like Ancient Brass Dragon or whatever, but Tamir Sabertooth is actually the best card in the deck because you bounce Karuga back to hand at the end of the turn, you recast it, and you get
wow,
like
yeah,
20
for
cards in your
sure.
hand at a time. And then some other sleeper cards like Mirage Mirror obviously is really fun to play. And Artistic Refusal, man. I know like that was a card that was being played a lot in Convoke decks in general. But playing that like for 6 mana is nice. To counter a threat and then draw a few cards. It's not a great card,
Well,
but it's great in this deck.
well, like I'm gonna be honest with you, it looks like 6 mana, and people go, "Oh, it's too expensive." But if you can convoke it out, it isn't 6 mana anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's 3 probably, and that puts it probably on par. And you get a lot of additional upside to casting it. So I think you're right. I think it's really good. I like the fact that you got some really interesting inclusions here. Do you mind if I ask you about a couple of cards? Like, so Tooth and Nail. What are you looking to get? Are you looking at like a particular target with Tooth and Nail, or are you just looking just generally for cool stuff to pull out of your deck?
So that's like literally a brand new pickup. I just picked that card up like probably 2 months ago, and I finally found cuts to put it in the list.
Right, right.
I think it'd be situational. I'd probably get like honestly, I'd probably get like maybe just like a metamorph, like a Phyrexian metamorph or like a pirated copy somebody else's creature,
Okay.
progenitor mimic
And
maybe,
oh,
and then like a value creature
do you
like
have the progenitor mimic in here?
yes.
Oh, you do, you sneaky SOB. So in this list, also, folks, you should be aware there is a Biovisionary, which is a card at a gate crash.
So that would
That
be
is
a
a
combo, I guess. I could pull
yeah,
those two out.
that's a really sneaky way to get a win because it says at the beginning of your end step, if you control 4 or more creatures named Biovisionary, you win the game. So that's a really sneaky one. But other things like obviously like Archon of Cruelty, like extra Archon of Cruelties are good. Extra Ancient Brass Dragons also seems strong. Like you got lots of really juicy targets for Volrath to copy. I also like how you phrased it where you said this thing like sort of leans into the chaotic nature of the deck without it being a full-on like red chaos deck, which I think I like as being something very refreshing because we've all played. If you've played for any length of time, folks, somebody has pulled out the scramble verse, uh, possibility
Norn of the
storm.
Wary, like Punisher deck.
Yeah, and it's like
Yeah.
it's just it takes chaos to like the 12th degree and no one likes it. This feels very chaotic and like kind of like unpredictable, but yet very fun and would be very interesting to play with lots of really interesting mechanics and cards you can utilize. So I really think this is like the strength of this deck is that sort of chaotic nature of it, and you're gonna utilize all sorts of cool things. And Volrath makes some really cool cards to be even cooler. So, what are the drawbacks to this list? What are the what
Sure.
like what could we go? Where does it go wrong?
Very slow. It's very, very slow. I've definitely gotten wrecked by there's that one card and it's an instant, it's a blue and a colorless. It says if a creature would enter, it becomes a copy of a different creature instead. It's like a mirror something. I forget what it is. Like a 2-mana instant. I played Volrath, they responded, turned my Volrath into a Thopter, lost all abilities or something. I forget what it's called.
Oh, that's not cool.
So like shutting down Volrath shuts down the entire deck in certain
Right.
aspects. If I can't ramp out to like a big bomby creature,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's just slow. I mean, I don't play anything till
Yeah.
turn 3, so it can be
Yeah.
difficult to establish like a board presence for a while.
So you're telling me you can never keep a 2-land hand? Never.
Probably not. Yeah, I mean, even if I had Lorien revealed in my hand, it
Right.
probably would suck.
Okay. So I gotta ask a question then. So what do you need this deck to do in order for you to win? Is there a critical mass of stuff? Is it just 3 mana and away we go?
No, I need to get to 5.
You need to get to 5. Okay, what happens at 5?
5 is
Volrath?
like probably Volrath, or if I play a few 3 drops, I'll just play Karuga and draw like
Okay.
3 cards or 4 cards. But really, the deck is strong if my opponent's playing like pretty good creatures too.
Yeah.
Because if I can copy a really strong creature on their end, it makes it difficult to deal with. I mean, I don't know. There have been times where I've ramped out a lot. Like I play like an Entrance Restoration and I've gotten like 8 mana out there pretty
Oh
quickly.
yeah.
But
Well, Entis Restoration is a good inclusion in this list because of the fact that you can go and get up to 3 lands if you can trigger the clause on it, which the 4 bigger, I think it is. Entis Restoration. Yeah, power. It says Ferocious, which shouldn't be hard when you're casting some of your critters. You're going to get a whole pile of land real quick. So no, I like this. And you say you get to 5 and you're good to go. Now I'm going to ask you a question while we're talking about your 5 mana getting to Volrath. Do you ever use Volrath to pick off 1 toughness creatures your opponents have?
oh,
Like, is it ever a
100%.
thing? Okay.
Like
So,
Land of War Elves or like I've
Bowmasters.
yeah, Bowmasters. There's a guy I played with recently had a Shirai deck. So I was trying to shrink Shirai so
Oh,
he could stop hurting us with little weenies.
right. Yeah, no,
Stealing
for
the weenie
sure.
didn't do anything. Um, yeah, I don't know. I've even considered playing the 6 mana Contagion thing, the Contagion engine.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
So
put more. Yeah, I guess you can put, like, I haven't thought of like the -1/-1 counter theme that you haven't really leaned into it particularly here because you don't make a lot of them, but Contagion might be fun.
and
Huh.
surprising sleeper as well is Jin Kataxis. As you can see, like if
Oh,
I get to 7 in hand or 8 in hand, I flip them. And then just reset the board, and then I can cast everything for free. Is really nice. I've done that at least once or twice in games before too. So, and
nice.
even
Okay.
instant speed keeping Volrath alive by copying something with Ward or copying something with Hexproof
Right.
is a really nice sneaky way to like keep the, because I can really just play him and then just pass the turn the next turn and not really do, I don't really have to do much. Um,
Oh, it's too
so
bad you can't. It's too bad you can't play Up the Beanstalk because this would be a perfect list to
I
play Up
know,
the Beanstalk. But
I know.
yeah, just can't do it.
Yeah,
All
what are you
right.
gonna do? All right.
What is the win con? Is there a win con here, or are you just going to value somebody out?
I mean, I've definitely done Clone Legion onto people, taken all of their creatures, but also I've done it to myself and copied a bunch of value creatures like Ancient Brass. I mean, you saw that I have Biovisionary in there as like a backup,
Mm-hmm.
and then I've actually beaten people with commander damage before,
Right.
with
All
Volrath.
right.
So
Well, like a seven
you
a
know,
7 power monster will get there pretty quick. 3 attacks of an unblocked Volrath would probably be the end of the game. And you said Plan B is the Biovisionary.
yeah.
Awesome. This is a sweet deck, folks. And like, there's some pieces to it that like are totally interchangeable. Like you do not need to run an Aetherling. You can run an
Oh,
Aetherling if you want. Aetherling is totally like that is a card that you found in a box, didn't you? And you're like,
it's a pet card.
let's play that
It's
because
a pet card.
Aetherling's strong because it's highly unblockable like all the time. But it also like if you don't want to run it or you don't have one, you could run something different. Like it's pretty interchangeable as a cog. So like this is a really rite of replication. Oh, dude. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's lots of fun toys in this deck, folks. This is a really great janky deck with some really neat pieces that you wouldn't see anywhere else. I mean, I haven't seen too many decks that run too many of these cards. And I really think that, people like you should be looking looking at stuff like this if you're looking for some inspiration on what sort of janky nonsense you want to put together next.
I mean, you don't even need some of the expensive cards either. Like you could cut like Archon of Cruelty, you could cut Grim Tutor. Like you don't need those cards.
Yeah, for
You
sure.
you could put any big bomb creature in there, and
Mm-hmm.
you don't even need to tutor if you're drawing cards. So there's a
Yeah.
lot of options out there. I'm definitely going to rework this deck and probably make it even more budget friendly, I think, eventually.
Nice.
But
Yeah. Nice.
yeah, anyway, what do you got for us though? Because I saw you had a traditionally older sort of like is it tribal or did they change the word now? It's not
It's now
tribal anymore.
called It's now called Kindred.
Okay.
There was talk at one point that we would have what's called typal, and then people were like, well, that's such a difficult thing to say, so we're going to go with Kindred, because there's a Kindred Discovery which cares about card
Yeah.
types and the card, like, so
Sure.
which I'm gonna be honest, Kindred sounds
Yeah,
fine to me. I'd
sure.
rather say that than typal. So
So
what I found, go ahead.
it's an old like it's a new take on an old sort of 5-color deck that existed.
Well,
In a
yeah.
sense.
So in the original Zendikar, the allies were a thing. And they all had a trigger that said when another ally comes into play, do something. And there wasn't really a commander for them. So when we went back in Battle for Zendikar, they gave us a commander that would allow us, and they named the ability. So the ability is called Rally, and anytime you play an ally, you rally, and the trigger goes off, and all your creatures get a benefit by having this effect go on. So I have General Tazri, which is from Oath of the Gatewatch. And so General Tazri says 4 and a white for a 3/4 legendary creature human ally. When General Tazri enters the battlefield, you may search your library for an ally card, reveal it, put it in your hand, and shuffle. And then white, blue, black, red, green. You have ally creatures you control get +X until end of turn, where X is the number of colors among those creatures. So the Tazri does two things for you at the same time. The first one, Tazri is a tutor. So when you can go tutor something up, and then once you have a critical mass of allies on the battlefield, you can use the 5-mana ability to stack and use that as a way to overrun the table. So this deck is playing quite a number of older cards, and I was disappointed that when we went back to Zendikar Rising, there weren't a lot of allies. It had switched into playing the party mechanic instead of playing allies, because I guess the Eldrazi threat had been neutralized. So you're playing cards from Zendikar Block and Battle for Zendikar. So some of these cards are a little bit older. Some of these, well, they're all old at this point now, because Battle for Zendikar was 2014, I guess, which is now a long time ago. This one surprises people. I'm going to be honest with you, Pete. It is a very surprising deck because people don't look at your cards, and no one of these allies is a particularly overwhelming threat. But they end up being greater than the sum of their parts by virtue of all the rally triggers produced by creatures entering the battlefield.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess while we're going start down the path, where did the deck idea come from? I noticed that the rally cards in Battle for Zendikar were reasonably strong, and particularly in red and white in the draft archetype. And so I was like, okay, these are strong in draft. The green ones were not. The blue ones were okay, and black ones didn't really exist. There were some black ones, not a lot. So when I saw General Tazri get printed and Oath of the Gatewatch, I was like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to make this ally deck, because there's enough allies here that you can do some really potent things. Now, the problem with a 5-color ally deck, or any 5-color deck, is making your mana base work. And the other piece to this deck that I think is hilarious is trying to make your mana base work with gates.
Mm.
So you have reasons to play gates and gates payoffs, namely the Maze's End. That is the that is the extra cherry on top here. So it's allowed me to do 5-color things and do a Maze's End deck at the same time.
There's some allies that you could possibly run that I'm kind of surprised are not in there, like Herabraz Druid, which is like add X mana of any one color or X number of allies. I guess it's because it's only one type of color, one mana, but I like this idea. Like there's what, 96 allies currently printed.
Yeah, there's not a huge amount, and some of them are not particularly good.
Right.
Because some of them, for instance, like Akum Battlesinger, for instance, is one. Like 1 in a red, 1/1 haste. It's an ally. Whenever Akum Battlesinger or another ally enters the battlefield, you may have ally creatures get +1/+0 until end of turn. Okay, like look, that's a really nice effect. It's not particularly game breaking. It doesn't pump your creature's toughness, which is kind of what this deck needs more than just like that would be a great aggro card if I could play if I was playing 60 card constructed and needed to get a single opponent dead. But on a table with 4 opponents, I need more impact from my rally triggers than just +1/+0. So Akum Battlesinger is like a card that I've looked at and I've just said, you know what, I'm not going to run it. There's a few other ones that I'm in the same sort of way that I'm just not prepared to equip or play. There's others that have got the cohort mechanic that are allies and like they have cohort on them, which is significantly inferior than just the rally trigger because you have to stop and tap them, which is like. But sometimes you play them because they're allies worth playing. Notably, there's one of the clerics, Ondu War Cleric. You can tap it to gain 2 life, and so you run it because it's 2 mana, and if you're looking for a way to pad your life total a little bit, it's not bad. But no, this deck is looking to hit harder than that. So some cards like particularly mana production tends to be not what this deck's doing. This deck is looking to kill out of nowhere. And so sometimes you just have to forgo mana dorks.
I mean, maybe Bruce Tarl also is consideration.
Bruce Tarl is,
an
and
upgrade,
I would, and so instead of something like a Restoration Angel, which was ostensibly looking to flicker a powerful ally to get a good trigger back. Bruce Tarl, which gives giving double strike, might be a better option in that slot.
I mean, I like this deck. Yeah. I'm not ripping it. I think it's really cool, and I've seen you play this against me before, and it was like fun to see you blow me out at least once or twice, 1-on-1. I think. I definitely think there's ways you could, crush some people with this for sure.
Yeah. So this one definitely needs to be. There's definitely some updates that probably could be made to this one if I, using more current cards in some of those utility slots. The problem is the creatures are pretty well set. There's only 3 or 4 cards that do not have the word ally written on them. So the Vizier of the Menagerie is one. There is Uvenwald. No, there's not. I took the Uvenwald Hydra out. Solanu Phyrexia is another one. Restoration Angel is 3. And then the Realm Walker has it, but by proxy. So there's 3 or 4 cards like creatures, but the rest of them are all allies, and you kind of just run them because they're allies. The creatures, the cards themselves, the sorceries, like an instance like Gaze of Granite could easily be removed. I took it in there because it's hilarious and it, could blow up a bunch of things based on a condition you want to set. You can say pay X is whatever you need to spend it on and blow up that. but it's not a great card. It's just was 49 cents and is a jank from a box. Reap and Sow was another one. Reap and Sow is me recognizing the fact that this deck, because of the mana requirement, and I need have 5 different colors of mana, you can go and get whatever you need with Reap and Sow, instead of having to go and rely, because there's 0 basics in this deck. There are not a single basic. So things like, Cultivate don't work because you have to, they stipulate you have to get a basic. So I was looking for ways to go and lean into ways.
Goblin Charbelcher then as like a secondary win con?
I had not thought of Goblin Charbelcher.
I said it'd be funny.
I think you're right. Charbelcher. Now, is it basic lands or trigger on until you reveal a land card? No, it doesn't work because there's too many lands in that. Because Charbelcher doesn't trigger on basics, or triggers on any lands, and I have 41 of those.
Never mind then.
Anyway, that would be something. That'd be a funny thing if you cared about non-basic, cared about basic lands. But yeah, so yeah, there's probably some upgrades that need to be done. This one, but still, people underestimate this deck, and it absolutely smashes people. I've sat at tables where people looked at me and they go, "Wow, you're playing nothing, whatever." And then I get them because I play 2 or 3 allies in a row, doom, and then go, and then they're like, "That's a problem. I'm dead."
Yeah. You could even do ETB doubling effects potentially. There's that new virtue that says, I think, when things enter, they trigger twice.
Virtue of Knowledge, yes. That would be a great inclusion in this list.
Virtue of Loyalty, untapping your stuff, putting counters on them would be pretty strong too. Again, I think this deck is just fun. I think it's just fun to see because it's a tribe that people really don't play at all.
No. So if you look at General Tazri's profile on EDH Rec, it's very low. It's 2,000 decks, I think, but you're talking about a card that's 10 years old, and it's 390th out of however many commanders. That's kind of crazy that it's that low, but people just aren't building it or playing it, and so I was. And now it's not perfect. I freely admit it's a very, very much a glass cannon sort of deck. If I get derailed, this deck really drags and it's hard to play through. If I get off to the races and people don't identify what I'm doing, they're probably in for a world of pain.
Mm-hmm. I think this is a consideration for Wizards to look at it like tribes that haven't really gotten support that should be supported a little bit more. I don't know.
I would love it. I would love if they printed me another, let's say, at least another 8 to 10 really, really good allies. I don't even want a lot of them. Just put them in a set, sneak them in somewhere in some other plane. We're allies. We're fighting some other bad guy, and then they get swallowed up by this tribe, and now or this kindred group, and now we're I'm just gonna giggle because I get some new toys. But typically that they're building people that elves or merfolk or goblins or vampires or whatever, and we're not getting a lot of allies. And now that the Eldrazi have been defeated on Zendikar, I don't know when we're next going back to Zendikar, or if we ever do.
Right.
The reality may be that it's just not a place we go back to visit, even though I think the place is fascinating.
Yeah, it's one of those. I think the party mechanic doesn't come close to it in the way that it runs, because it's too easy to abuse that mechanic. Where this, you actually have to work. You have to work for this. It's fair.
I think it's a much more fair payoff than the party mechanic, which is in looking to leverage something that I think is inherently pretty easy to assemble. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. In Zendikar Rising, it never felt hard to get your party mechanic to come together if that was something you were looking to do. And with that dedicated party deck, again, same sorts of thing. And that deck really, when it goes off hard, and people you have to respect it. So but they're not getting allies; it's getting party, and I don't want to play clerics and rogues and whatever else. I want to play allies, and I want them to turn sideways and smash. I will tell you this: if this deck ever gets blood mooned, I'm going to feel like that is the end of me. I'm like, oh, never mind, game over, I'm done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
because not a single basic means I get a whole lot of mountains, and that's about it.
it's funny.
I will say this: I have Maze's End of the table, which is also pretty funny. We stalled out, and my opponents were too busy killing each other. And then when they realized too late, with like I think I had one activation left to do making my maze, so like we need to kill Bruce now, and I'm like, you can't, and you have left nothing left, and I've got 8 to 10 blockers on the table. I don't need to come after you. I'm just going to Maze's End you, and that's that. And that was hilarious.
It's like come from behind deck, you know.
Well, it definitely it surprises, right? So like I remember like I was playing a dude and he was on a Nekasar deck, and his Nekasar deck was nasty. And the other guys at the table were really frustrated with him. I just blew him out. He's like, how did you kill me? I'm like, well, I turned all these things sideways and they all were like had +4/+4 and trample, and you're dead. And he's like, oh, I'm dead. But then the next turn, I untapped, and the Muldrotha player was a problem. So I'm like, well, I'm gonna do you now too. So I did the Muldrotha player, and like he's like, oh, I didn't think you could do that again. I'm like, well, I've got like 3 more allies in my hand, buddy. Like, what do you think I'm doing here? Like, this is what I do. And then the last guy was like, looked at me. He's like, I'm dead, aren't I? I'm like, yeah, you're cooked. Just you. I don't know what he was playing, but he didn't have a board wipe. And I'm like, well, I got Boros Charm anyway, so you're probably dead.
You could definitely play like other things too, like flicker your stuff to protect your board.
Oh, for sure.
Even just some of the lands you could probably, if you wanted to, like some of the scry land, like the temple lands, you could probably replace those with like a Fable Passage or something too. But I think I love that like you have 2 really difficult sort of archetypes you have to sort of manage to win the game. It's like you have to really work for this, which I appreciate.
And you know what? I'm happy to do it too. Like it's one of these decks, like you know these decks you build, audience, where you build it and you leave it for a while. You build it, you play it for like 6 months. You're like, nah, I'll take it apart because it's not that you love. Like I've had this one now since 2014. There it is, still there, ready to go at a moment's notice, and I love it. I don't get a chance to play it too frequently, but when I'm not taking it apart. I like the deck too much. And so there we go. I've got, my allies deck, and it's ready at a moment's notice. And someone says, let's play Kindred. I'm like, sure, you play elves and I'm on allies, please.
I guess it reminds us as players that it's not all about winning. Sometimes the fun decks are the weirdest ones, and the diversity that you can play really makes the game more enjoyable. You don't have to win a single game, but as long as your friends have a good time with you, or the pod that you were in had a good time with you, I think we lose sight of that sometimes in deck building because we want to build the most disgusting, most consistent, most, crazy thing that just goes off the rails. So.
Yes, I think that's part of it. I would also say like part of the appeal here is the cool factor. Whereas like with Volrath, people would stop like, I don't know what you're doing here, Pete. And like same thing with the allies, they go, I don't know what you're doing, Bruce. You've got 4 cards in hand and 3 cards in front of you on the table, and I don't know if I should be worried if I'm going to die or if you've got interaction or lands in hand. And I'm like, you got to find it out. And like when you get somebody with it, they're like, that's cool. Like Resolute Blade Master, and it's a Juru Warcaller, and 4 allies means they're probably dead, and that's awesome. Like people are cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
And they go, and then I never thought I would see myself die like that. and that's okay. So
For sure.
do not underestimate weird and unusual strategies, folks. Like both the commanders we highlighted today are hovering around the 400th most popular commanders in the game. Like we're not playing popular, tier 1 commanders, but you can still do something really interesting and do something really fun and make your pod go, wow, that was really neat. I really enjoyed playing something very different and very refreshing. Even if, the strategy is still the same, like it's chaotic or I'm going to turn things sideways and punch you. It's just it's a different way of doing it. And they go, that's neat. I hadn't thought of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think to end it just for today,
Mm-hmm.
moving forward, we're probably going to go away from deck building for a while. Sometimes it can be exhausting to cover this,
Yes.
and we've been doing this for several weeks, so we'll probably move away from it. But if there's anything you can take away from us as players and us as deck builders, is we like to switch it up, and we like to present many different avenues when we sit down in a pod,
Mm-hmm.
as to different kinds of decks that we like to run. Voltron, combo, storm-based things, janky, weird things, and every so often we pull out the mean sort of gotcha card. But
Mm-hmm.
we really do like flexibility and interesting sort of builds. So it doesn't have to win every time, but this is, I think, the point of the channel is like getting creative with our building and getting creative with what we like to play. So
I agree, Pete, 100%. Like we're not like there's way less focus on the winning and doing something interesting and creative and fun with, in a way to make the experience unique for you and unique for the people you're playing with. So that when they, like I said, we've been echoing this for weeks now, folks. The whole goal of playing Commander should be to get you invited to come back to play. And if you sit down with something unique and fun and different, people are going to say, you know what? Like whether you won or lost is not really the the point. They go, that was cool. I like playing with Bruce. I like playing with Pete. Let's play with them again next week, or 2 weeks from
yeah,
now, or whenever we next see them. Because I had fun, and that's the goal. We're having fun, and not necessarily sucking all the fun out of the game by doing the stuff that everybody anticipates that you're going to do all the time.
yeah, that's why I like when I play with people that I play with more regularly on Discord. I usually let them decide. I usually let fate
Mm-hmm.
decide what I'm playing, because sometimes I don't want to choose, and I'd rather them choose so that way I get to play some different things because we're very limited in our time that we get to play. So
Mm-hmm.
might as well take advantage of it when we have it.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
All right.
cool.
Should we draw this week to a close there, Pete?
Yeah, just heads up, we're gonna probably talk about some mulliganing next week, I think. I feel like that's gonna be a really fun discussion for us regarding like Commander, how to mulligan, because that's something that's not really discussed in the most pods, but I think it's important to understand, um, when you keep a hand, even if your pod allows for a fresh 7 every time, it's good to like realize, okay, what am I ideally trying to do by turn 5? And we're gonna definitely boil
Mm-hmm.
that down, I think.
Yeah, I think as the game has sped up and Commander has progressively gotten more efficient, the it would have been a time when you could have kept a medium hand and made it work. And now I think you need to be. We're going to talk about how you need to be a little bit more intentional with the cards the hands you choose to play and keep at the start of the game, and how that's going to look. And so I think the talk around mulliganing is really important, and it's going to help players make good choices so that when they play, they have a game instead of being caught either flooded out or screwed on mana,
Mhm.
and and then having a non-game instead of having a fun game. But that's next week. If you want to find all of the places that you want to get a hold of us or where the show was found, all that is in the show notes, folks, by all means. And of course, our home is thelotuscouncil.com. You can find all of our shows, including our back episodes, if that is something that interests you. If you want to hit the last 5 weeks with decks, or you want to go back further and check out far more into the archives, by all means, go and check them out. There's lots of great things to find there and nuggets to uncover. Some really great interviews and some other great conversations with guests and other people that have stopped in at the podcast. Yeah, so I guess that's it, folks. Hope everyone enjoyed their Thanksgiving, and now that we're back to normal and the sprint run up to the holidays, have yourselves lots of fun. Enjoy it whenever you play Magic, and we'll talk to you soon.
Take care, everyone, and stay safe out there. I know the world's crazy right now, but just know that we'll be back at you next week. And wherever you play Magic, please have a good time. Enjoy it. It's fleeting.
Bye.
Peace.